Audiences today get bored fast, and not because they don't care, because they feel like they've heard it all. The real question is, are we engaging them? Are we pushing them further away and not realizing it? On today's show, we're looking at how to transform audiences from passive listeners into active participants by using smarter engagement techniques and activities that are framed, well, with purpose, not just gimmicks. And we've got a seasoned MC speaker and entertainer who understands crowd dynamics. You ready? Let's go. Today's guest, Rob Ferre, is a certified speaking professional, MC, entertainer, and entrepreneur. He's the former halftime game show host of the Utah Jazz and proud to have spoken internationally in over 10 countries. I'm going to let him take it from here because he'll do a better job than me. So welcome to the show, Rob. The floor is yours.
Well, from one Rob to another, it's great to be on the Presentation Whisperer. And I don't think we're going to be doing a lot of whispering today.
No.
We're going to be telling people exactly how to engage audiences and to get them to pay attention, because this is something I'm very passionate about. And I have a extensive background in entertainment. And so I started my career in Orlando, Florida. And if you know anything about Orlando, they got Universal Studios, Disney, SeaWorld, and I even worked at the Nickelodeon Hotel. And I cut my teeth there, and I often tell people I got my MFE, and that's a made-up degree, which is my Master's of Family Entertainment, because that's like the theme park capital of the world, and that's where I cut my teeth. And so that was a great proving ground for me to be able to engage audiences, capture their attention, and entertain them as well. And over the years, I've been able to parlay that into a speaking career as well.
Yeah. And I was looking at some of the information that you gave me, and like most of us, most Robs, we didn't just wake up, 3 years ago. We were in fourth grade already holding court somewhere. But for you,
Yeah.
I noticed I was reading some of your stuff that in middle school you were voted most likely to be a comedian. So,
Yeah.
all right, it's been early for you. What's some of the changes in the last, let's bring you up to speed, maybe the last 10 years, some of the changes you might have seen in terms of, how we go and engage an audience.
Well, we're constantly competing with this. This is a cell phone, a device that will connect you with the world and help you check out. And so if people are going to be holding those devices, I use it to my advantage. And I often do a lot of engagement activities, but I also do a lot of polling. I do a lot of games that they can do exactly on their phone. And I use it as a tool to connect and to also understand more about my audience. So one of those ways is I use Mentimeter a lot. There's lots of different polling software out there. And back in the day, I didn't have to go through this, but I know some speakers, they had to purchase all these devices or rent devices that they could do live polling. Now we can do it with our phones, and it's great. And so I put up a QR code, and that's one way I engage my audience in certain ways, either in breakout sessions or as a closing keynote. As an opening keynote, I don't often use the phone because I have their attention, right? When you're an opening keynote speaker, people are going to be captive. They're ready to engage. But let's say you're at the end of the day, or you're at the end of a 3-day conference and you got that closing spot. How do you keep them on task? How do you keep them engaged in your message? And the thing is, sometimes I don't think about it as my message. I think about how can I connect them to the content that they just learned throughout the last 3 days? How can I connect them to the next steps? But also I use this as a tool to understand their needs, their pain points. And some people go through the tasks of sending out surveys in advance. I like to do it live. It's the way I roll. And so I use Mentimeter as one tool, and I ask them questions that lead to discussions, but it also guides me on where I'm going to go with my presentation. I've also done some parts where I've done a choose your own adventure. I have 3 or 4 different topics that we can dive into. I'll keep the main focus, but that middle topic, I'll have them choose that adventure by going through the polling. Okay, we're going to go in this direction because when I use my keynote as a modular type experience, and I can insert different stories and different experiences, but that does require me to have my technology on stage with me. And so I let all my planners know that. I also give them a rider and I say, I'm not going to be sending you my slides because it's ever evolving and I want to customize it and I want to be that person that is relevant to your audience. And so there are times I can do without having to use the Mentimeter polling or the QR code games, but it has been a really great way for me to help my audiences check out to check back in.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I'll tell you the part I love most about what you said. Gave us all a very good example of how to hold on to our slides. Most professional
Yeah.
speakers like you and me, forget the reason you used. I'll take any reason. I hate sending my slides out because I have video on them. I have different things.
Yep.
And it's not a matter of if, it's just when. You go
Yep.
ahead and load it on the client's computer. There's an issue. And when
Yeah.
first time it happened to me, I was working for a speakers bureau. Um, hey,
Yeah.
the client said sorry, but it always falls back on us. So
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with my equipment, my clicker. I know how to
Yep.
control it. I know how to fix it. Once you give up that control, you're at the mercy of now of, I don't know what school this AV guy went to, you know. Uh,
Right.
so the bigger shows, I'm sure you've done keynotes where you've got 1,000 people and you got a big company in the back. I'm okay with those guys. But it's
Yes.
that smaller kind of 100 person, we're using the hotel AV person. That's the one you want to control everything if you can.
Yeah. And I mentioned that I put it in my writer. And
Mhm.
another thing that helps mitigate some of the pitfalls of doing like those 100-person rooms, you're in a hotel ballroom and they set up that stage, like a slight stage. And then the thing that they do that I hate the most is when they put the podium in the center of the stage. And so you're constantly having to work around.
Right.
I like being center stage and I don't like this big pillar. And so when I send them my rider, I said, let's go ahead and put that podium to the right side of the stage. That way I can work the center of the stage. But it's also important because I have to make sure that I'm engaging the audience on the right side, on the left side, and the middle. And yes, you can put that podium in the middle and then go from right to left. But for me, it's really important that I have everything to the right. And if I'm going to do that, there are going to be some people who may not be able to see me. So I will make sure that sometimes I'll get off stage and I'll engage them. I'll go down into the audience with them, let them know that they're not forgotten. I even use this line, and don't worry about you in the cheap seats. I'm coming back to you now. And
Right.
that's a way I also engage an audience, making sure that I'm going from the front of the room to the back of the room.
Yeah.
And it's a success for me is when it's not necessarily people not being on their phones, it's not them leaving. And so if people are still engaged from beginning to end, that's a good thing for me. Is like, okay, they didn't get up, they didn't leave. But I often equate this to that closing keynote, which is really difficult. And I found a formula that has worked for me to keep those people engaged for those closing keynotes. And I don't use my entire methodology or make it all about me. I do a lot more connecting activities, and I do some roundtable discussions about the things that they learned. So that's one strategy that I use to keep those people attending and engaged for that final session.
Yeah, boy, you read my mind because that's where my question was going to go next. Because I haven't heard a speaker tell me before, I'm shifting my keynote, the same keynote, based on the time of the day that I'm going, which I'm
Yes.
interested in because I think I know everything, and apparently I don't because I don't normally change it. I work harder. I know it's going to be a harder, uh, afternoon. One time I
Yeah.
had a speaker go, can you believe this? Series of speakers in Georgia. I'm not naming names, but the guy went 55 minutes long on a
Oh dear.
60-minute keynote. And this company had started at 7:30, and I was the 12:30 to 1:30 speaker before lunch. Okay.
Oh dear.
Uh, I never spoke to that guy again, by the way. I don't
Death
think the meeting
sentence.
planner either did, but and I think people need to understand. Yeah, that really kind of screwed me up and screwed up their schedule, but that's a great way of not getting hired again. You really
Yeah.
have to hit those time slots, but stay with that. I'm sorry to ramble a little bit here. I want to stay
Oh no.
with you've got kind of a delivery, and I'm guessing content similar. The way you deliver it changes based on if I've got you at 9 a.m. or 3:30 p.m. getaway time. So what are you doing other than you mentioned roundtables? You're changing the format around. How are you fixing that up?
Okay. So two things.
Yeah.
Uh, First comment on about how that gentleman was it a gentleman or are
Yes,
we
it was.
gonna
It was.
leave the okay
I don't
the
think he was
gentleman
very
who went over an
gentle.
hour?
Yes.
He was not very gentle. He was all about himself in that moment, and I think a good MC would find a way to get that person off stage.
Yeah.
And so sometimes meeting planners don't realize the value of an MC who can come in and put you back on track
Right.
and help that out, and they can be the bad guy for you, right? I've had to be that person at events as well, where I've had to gently remind somebody, this is all great stuff. Are you going to be sticking around afterwards? Yes. Great. Well, we want you to be able to connect with everybody. We're sure you have so many more thoughts on this, but we're going to have to move on because we got Rob in the wings here. And guess what? Between you and them, we have lunch. And so everybody here is anticipating lunch, and we're going to be going to that soon. So this is a way to mitigate those type of things. And if any meeting planners are listening to this, that's what a good MC can do for you. Now, you were talking about my delivery.
Yeah.
So when it comes to my delivery, if my audience is at a 5, I usually come in as a 6 or a 7. I don't want to blast them away at a 10 and alienate my audience. That's just my approach. I know some people like, oh yeah, people love that. I come in, guns ablazing, I'm going, and I elevate people. I bring them along with me. And so I like to come in at a 7 and then slowly elevate the energy in the room. And so one of the things or the tropes that I hear and have seen online, not from speakers, but from attendees, the person, the speaker that uses the cliche of, good morning, everyone. I said, good morning. They immediately roll their eyes. They completely check out because this person has just insulted them by saying, you're not good enough. You didn't give me enough praise. I need more energy. Give me more energy. And did you hear while I was talking, I used the words me, I need to meet my audience where they're at. And so that's one thing. Now, when it comes to the roundtables, this is what happened at a recent conference. I was the closing keynote and I was dreading that. And I was looking at the schedule, and the planner I was working with, she was saying, these people look forward to this session because they do roundtable discussions and nobody wants to miss that. So right before you go on, you got the roundtable discussions. You'll go on after that. And I pitched to her, what are your thoughts on me facilitating those roundtable discussions? It was slated for a half hour. I was slated for an hour. I will use that whole hour and a half to facilitate those roundtable discussions. So I still opened with my opening 15 minutes that I do in my keynote. And then we went into those roundtable discussions. I used Mentimeter to get an idea of some of the topics that they want to cover. And then I used upvoting within Mentimeter. Now, upvoting is I get the comments, it's open ended, and then I let the audience vote what we're going to discuss. And it worked brilliantly. And so this is one way that I've been able to adapt my message to a closing keynote. Some people are just great storytellers and they'll captivate an audience. I believe my strengths are more in the engagement factor and coming and learning more about my audience. And I'll still insert those stories, maybe some of those activities. And also, I like to fashion myself as somebody who is an expert on gamification. And sometimes I don't use the word games because I don't want it to be a word that maybe frightens some of my clients. Because if I've said, hey, we're going to be playing some games, oh no, we don't do games. People don't like games, or people don't want to be put on the spot. I call them engagement activities. Oh, okay, great. So it's just about using different words to match what their outcomes and goals are. And that's one of the most important things is understanding the outcomes and goals. If you are slated to be an opening keynote, closing keynote, breakout session, what are the outcomes? When they are leaving my session, what are your attendees saying? As they are driving home, what are their thoughts after my session? Well, I want them to know that this was a great conference and that they can't wait to come back until next year. Great. How can I help make that happen? And so that's how I modified my keynote to match their goals. And I was able to take that roundtable discussion opportunity and implement it into my keynote.
Yeah. I got to tell you, Rob, I'm not just blowing smoke at you. Maybe it's because you're named Rob. That's got to be it. Very impressed with the ideas you're throwing out here. I really think you're
Yeah.
a smart guy. I've talked to a lot of speakers. Uh, really good content. I'll double back because a lot of it is thinking on your feet too. You got to play the
Yeah.
ball where it lies. I knew I'm going to go back to that guy who goes an hour long, and we're already way too long in that room. And we got to play the ball where it lies. But how I handled that, and I still have people that remember that. I said when I got up there, I said, at this point, I know some people have to go to the restroom, etc. Do me one favor though. When you get up to slip out, could you pretend I'm so interesting you can't take your eyes off me? Back out of the room as you go. And the first guy who got up, and I went, excuse me, turned. Everybody started laughing. He backed out. And from then on in, every now and then somebody would be back at it. We'd get a nice little laugh, but boy, it held the audience. We just sort of,
Yeah.
called it what it was and
Yes.
managed that time because the temptation, Rob, is to get angry, not at the
Oh, yeah.
audience. But an audience can see when a speaker's not in a good mood. Okay.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
if I'm not in a good mood, they're not in a good mood. So to
Yes.
just play it off a little bit lighter now, yeah, we'll talk about that when we do debrief in 2 days. I'll tell you what I think about what happened at that meeting, to the client I was working for. But right then and there, we got a job to do. And
Yeah.
I like the fact that you're kind of working with what you got there. And to your other point, I used to do. I was a performer in some other ways as well, and did some musicals. I remember one director told me, he said, "Rob, you want that audience singing your song when they're driving home." And I think that equates to what you said, which is they heard a lot of information. I want them on the key stuff and the key points that I was making. And I think as trainers, as speakers, that doesn't happen by accident. It's content and. So let's go to the
Mhm.
and. You got typical keynote an hour. It's not in my keynote if I don't think it's important, but if they remember nothing else from this keynote or here are the two, three things I want. Tell me some of the ways you try and I don't want to say manipulate, but influence what song they're singing on the way home.
Couple of strategies. One, you let's go back to that previous comment about the speaker going over time and
Hmm.
then you acknowledging it. I call it addressing the elephant in the room. I think it's important to do that sometimes. And if we ignore it, then people are going to keep thinking about that. You address it, we move on. Right. And
Right.
so you did that with the whole bathroom thing. Hey, I understand this. You turned it into a game, you turned it into a moment. And it also connected you to the audience in a fun way. Second thing is what you didn't do, which is good, is throw somebody under the bus. I
No.
think if you do that on stage, you're going to alienate yourself from the audience. Everybody knows what's going on and right, okay. And you come out like, geez, get a
Yeah.
load of that windbag.
Yeah.
But
Look at
some
your watch
ways,
much? Yeah.
right, exactly. Who's this guy? And but one way to be able to create that moment where your people are singing your song, creating that stickiness, creating that moment where people are writing that one quote is doing it throughout. I have one quote that I use, not a quote, but I would say a mantra, the thing that I want them to sing. And for me, it is sense exclusion, spark inclusion. Go ahead, write that down. When you sense exclusion, spark inclusion. Now, did I come to that on my own? No, I've seen other speakers do that where they say, write that down. And I know that might be a cliche for some people, like, oh, I hate that. Or text somebody you know. And who in your life maybe is feeling that exclusion? Have you ever sensed it? Right. So that's another way, is giving them an action to either write it down, to take action on it, to make a note. Another way that I do it is actually putting it into a game. And so that could be the reveal at the end of the game. You could do like a Wheel of Fortune game. I have a Wheel of Fortune game where they have to guess the phrase.
Mhm.
That's one way of doing it. But if you bookend it as well, starting your keynote with the phrase, reminding them in the middle, and then
Calling
bringing
it
it back
back.
to them.
Yep. Yep.
Another way is even doing a cadence, having people, I do this with elementary schools, or used to. I don't really speak to elementary schools anymore, but that's how I started. And I would do drug prevention assemblies. Don't do drugs. And I would do a symphony. Okay, you over here are going to say don't. You're in the middle say do. And you're going to say drugs. Don't do drugs. And then I point at the kids in the middle and I go, do. One more time, do. I said, do, and they all laugh, right? It's silly. But I did that, those moments of engagement, and that's kind of where I cut my teeth as a speaker, funny enough, was doing elementary school assemblies. And that was about 15 years ago when I got started doing those. And even longer than that, I would say maybe 18 years ago. And so everybody gets started somewhere. And for me, it was doing elementary school events. But those are some tactics that you can use to create stickiness. Some
Yeah.
people have worksheets. There's so many ways to turn your song into something that sticks for them.
Yeah. Being more visual. I love what you just said. We call that sort of laying out the objective, which is a very misunderstood term in training. The objective left and present. No, we're not talking about that misused phrase. I mean, at the end of the presentation, here's what I want you to get out of it. I want you to remember. Then, like you
Yeah.
said, hitting it, then calling it back at the end, putting a visual behind it while we're doing it. Now, I can't make everything visual, but there are certainly some tactics that can help. It's funny. I'm smiling over here when you're talking about cutting your teeth. There you are in the elementary school. I cut my teeth. I worked on a project for the National Flood Insurance Program, and I did
Mm.
2 day, 16-hour seminars in front of claims adjusters, actuaries, and underwriters on the wonders of flood insurance. And I will tell you, Rob, you survive that. With that material, with that audience, I could talk about a caterpillar for 3 days if you want, and it'll be interesting, daggone it. But I
Yes.
really do think, not that I wish it on anybody, but there's some real tough topics out there. And in a sense, it's almost good to practice on something tough. Because when you
Yeah.
get confidence there, and I was very confident near the end, I had my own flood shtick that I had a banner that I would drop across that lectern that said "Rob the Thriller Jollis" on it. And just as I was setting up, 2 years before Michael Jackson's album, thank you very much. So, Rob, you are speaking to the original Thriller today. But sometimes we're so desperate to put fun things into the program
Mm.
that we forget to connect them to the message. So they just become sort of almost looks like the trainer or the speaker liked that piece of shtick, but never really brought it home, tied it to why did we do that? What were we supposed to learn from it? I got
Right.
a trick on that one, but I'd like to hear yours because I can tell you're a guy who's out of the box and does creative things. How do you keep from going too far to the other way?
So when I speak to other speakers, I actually train them on gamification. I tell them gamification can be there as a tool to educate. It can also be a tool to entertain, to keep them engaged, right? But I think if you're going to go the education route, don't just shoehorn a game into it because you need to do an activity or a game.
Right.
And I think that's the most important thing, is to understand the why behind the game. And so I often work with speakers, coaching them on how to take their existing methodology and turn it into an activity, or take the current activity that they're already doing and enhance it. And I think we also have to recognize the top back, where we just did the game, and we need to understand why we played the game.
Right.
And if you can break that down for them, that's really important. I've also found this is when I do a talk back, sometimes people don't want to answer. Okay, so what did you learn? Why did you react this way? Nobody. That's one of the hardest points, is when you're trying to actually do that talk back, you're not getting it. And so know what other people have said in the past and understand why you did that. And here's the interesting thing about anonymous polling. When I do use Mentimeter, for example, I'll actually get commentary, because people oftentimes, if they are at a conference surrounded by their peers, they don't want to look silly. Like, I'm getting on a microphone and I might not have the right answer and everybody's judging me, or, ooh, I hate getting on a mic. This is not my forte. I don't want to do this. And so also, there might be some ringers in the audience, some people that you talk to in advance. I would appreciate it when I do this activity that you can tell me, or talk to the planner, who is a good person that I can use as a example, or somebody I could talk to during the event. Oh, this person would be great. And sometimes when I do those roundtable discussions, I am bouncing from table to table and kind of listening. And I was just sitting over at so-and-so's table, and Scott, you said something really profound. Would you be open to sharing that? And if he is, great. Well, Scott's going to let me do it instead. And so I'll share what Scott's had to say about that activity. So there's so many different ways for you to make it applicable to the audience. But it all starts at the very, very beginning. It's like, oh, I want to do this game. I'm like, okay, why do you want to do the game?
Yeah.
Is
How do
it
you set it
because
up?
you're in the middle?
Right.
So I also use it as a way, as an instant quiz, a rapid recap. You can use what we just learned to help them retain the knowledge that they just got.
Yeah. There's a good book. It might be 20 years old now, but there was a book I used to love called Games Trainers Play. And I think it was by a guy named Nordstrom or something. But of the 250, I think I found two things that really worked for me. You know what, Rob? That book paid for itself over and over again. When you get even two out of a book like that, I keep hearing the ification. You're like a sneezification. How you doing, ification? You got a new keynote called teamification, if I got this right. Tell me a
Yes.
little bit about that.
So teamification is actually a broad brand surrounding what I do, right? Teamification is a keynote. It's also my approach to events, going from isolation to collaboration. That's the most important thing, is we are in so many siloed environments. People are feeling loneliness at the workplace. A lot of people are working remotely, and then maybe they go to the annual event and there they are in human form now with people. I also do a lot of virtual events. But the most important thing about teamification is helping people understand each other. It's not a keynote that helps people get to know me and my story. It's a keynote, it's a workshop, it's a team building activity that helps those in the audience get to know each other. And that's really my goal, is to help those organizations, either it be an association event where they have multiple business owners coming year after year. How do we make those first time attendees feel like they're now a part of the group and that they'll want to come back? How do we help a corporation where they have multiple employees in different branches, different locations? come together for one day and connect. And that's what teamification does. And
Yeah.
so I often start off with my methodology, and then I go into these activities that will bring that collaboration to front.
Yeah. Now, I was just talking to somebody the other, I think last week. We got on the term icebreaker. And, when we're doing a keynote and we got, 400 people out there and we got 60 minutes, I'm not necessarily going to run an icebreaker for this group. But when you do a workshop, and I was watching your facial expression when I even used the word icebreaker. Uh,
Yeah.
there are some that will say, "I don't have time for an icebreaker. It's old school." What do you think of? What would you say to somebody who says, "I'd rather just save the time and use it for some more content"?
Well, they're probably thinking of an icebreaker in one form. Well, an icebreaker is an activity where I have to take 5 minutes to do this thing to get people to get up out of their seats and do this or that, right? Icebreakers are there's so many different ways to break the ice. One of them, I do it through my video introductions. Oh, okay, this guy's going to be fun. I do customized video introductions where I run into the room and I film things leading up to that point. And another icebreaker is I use humor. One of my opening slides is I talk about my celebrity doppelgangers. And I go, let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room. You're all probably wondering how this organization could afford this low rent Ryan Seacrest. Not a lot of laughter.
Good
I go to
try.
the next one, Hugh Grant. And then I go to the coup de grace, the third one. Comedy comes in threes, right? The third one, I put up a picture of Steve Buscemi. I say the guy that they put in the wood chipper in the movie Fargo. Boom. Ice is broken. I often see people kind of doing this, like, I don't know. And then they see me do this self-deprecating humor and they start nodding and laughing, like, yeah, I was thinking that. Okay. Now that we've got that out of the way, what's going to happen is this. That is an icebreaker, an opening slide, an opening moment. Um, some people break the ice by coming into the room dancing and they got some music playing and whatever. That is a way to break the ice. There's so many different ways, and it's not just an activity. I
Right.
use humor to disarm them and let them know I don't take myself too seriously. My friend Clint Pulver, one of the best speakers I know, the way he breaks the ice, he says, so today you're here for this keynote, but I'm going to promise you one thing. I'm not going to make you write down all these different concepts. I'm not going to make you do this. I'm not going to make you do that. All you have to do is do this, right? And he just gives them a roadmap for what's about to happen and kind of disarms them and lets them know what's about to happen. And that's another way to break the ice, is just going that way. So not all icebreakers are created equal. And I think just rethink what you think is an icebreaker.
Right. And read the room. So, for instance,
Yeah.
sometimes I'll get called to a company. I do a lot of what's called closed sessions. I'm just working for a Toyota or a major corporation. They already know each other. So to
Yeah.
go through the exercise of introduce the person to your left and they will introduce you is wasting our time. But
It's a trope.
sometimes we
Yeah.
get into situations where they don't know this is a club meeting. They don't know each other, and we've got them
Yeah.
for a half a day. I
Yeah.
was sort of setting you up for the answer of please, whatever you do, don't con yourself into believing your material is so valuable that you don't have 9 minutes to warm that room up. Because if you don't, you're going to pay that price for the next 4 hours or whatever it is of a room that's
Yes.
got their arms folded. And you're thinking, must be the audience. No, you can't rush into it. I'm with you. I tend to, particularly in the olden days, a lot of times I used to, for sales meetings, love to start with a little Glengarry, Glen Ross, but let that clip do the heavy lifting for a minute,
Mm,
and
yeah.
let them realize this is going to be creative. We're gonna unmask this profession a little bit, but it doesn't come from the words. It comes from some of the activities. Loved your answer on that one. All right, last question. We'll begin to bring this in for a landing. How do you handle a room? Well, let's just make it an audience member, and we're now workshop wise. Okay, so we're 20 or less in this room that I'm describing for you. How do you handle that type of room? You've got them for a day in one of your workshops, and you just got somebody who's really got their arms folded. They don't look angry at you, but they're just not engaging. What ism do we have for this one? What are some techniques that you use maybe to go after somebody that's just not engaging?
If it's one person, there's many different ways you can go about it. I think one of the most important things is doing vibe checks throughout and understanding your audience and meeting them where they're at. That's why if I'm doing a half day workshop and I got 20 people in the room, um, I'm going to let them know there's going to be breaks and that they're able to go out, do take care of business, then come back into the room. And I think if you give them that roadmap and let them know what's about to happen,
Yeah,
okay, so that's one thing. And then also, hey, is this resonating with you? If it is, go ahead and give me a vocal prompt. I like to do vocal prompts over hands
right.
because hands are visual. By a
Yeah,
raise of hands, is this resonating with you? By a raise of hands, right? And then sometimes I'll do vocal prompts. But if that person is not engaged, I might ask somebody else in the room, hey, tell me a little bit about some of the dynamics in this room. I'm not going to point out one person, but the dynamics. What are some of these people dealing with? Yeah, I'm curious. The gentleman on the front row. Oh, that's Ron. He's just that way. He's got that resting face. Oh, okay. But go ahead and talk to him about it. But I like to ask questions and learn more about these people.
right.
But here's the other thing is we can't please everybody. And so if you can move on from that person and don't let that person be the litmus test for how your message is received, I don't let it like wear you down because that person could be dealing with something that we have no idea what they're dealing with, right? But just seek to understand first, right? Instead of being like calling to judgment. So those are just a couple of ways that I would approach that situation. But being vigilant as to how that person is reacting to the different prompts that you put out there. Are they taking notes? Are they on their phone? Could I do an activity that will utilize what they're doing right now? Um, there are so many different ways to approach that one person and to maybe understand it maybe during the break and maybe even giving that person a task. And Bob, you're on the front row. I'm going to have you hand out these papers. I'm going to give you a task to do, right? There's so many different ways to bridge that gap. But I think the most important thing is to understand maybe that some people show up and they do things for their own reasons and not yours. And so you just got to understand it's not necessarily you that's the problem. They might have resistance to other things that are going on in their life.
Yeah, Rob, you nailed it. I just want to put some light on a couple things you said. One is, which many people kind of disregard. You always have the breaks. Sometimes when you just go up and you don't go, I've noticed you're not engaging. Just how you going? How's the day? They'll tell you, there's usually something that has nothing to do with us, nothing to do
Right.
with any. And number two, we have to avoid that temptation to say, I'm going to get everyone to participate at the exact same level. That's kind of 70s and 80s workshop lessons. We don't. There's no quota system. Some people are just quiet, they're dealing with things. And unless you want to create a sniper, you have to be respectful of that. And that's the message I just pulled from you. How do people get a hold of you?
Well, the way that I love for people to engage with me is on Instagram and LinkedIn. And so follow me at Rob Ferre, RobFerre. Find me on LinkedIn, same name. Go to my website, robferre.com. And that's a great way for us to connect. And I am an open book. I don't really have like a program for people to opt into. There are some people that I coach and mentor. But if anything, you have a question about how to engage an audience, how to level up your speaking skills, how to create a game, I'm an open book and I'm happy to collaborate with you on that because I come from an abundance mentality. I'm part of the National Speakers Association, where their mantra is let's make the pie bigger. And I'm all about creating more abundance better speakers, doing better engagements, and it makes it just better for us. And I think if we can go out there, kill it, and help each other, that's the best way for us to grow.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not trying to sound selfish, but yeah, I gotta root for the other Robs in this world, because if you don't do a good job, it's harder for me to convince a client, yeah, you want me at next year's meeting. Now we did that already. It didn't work out real well. Oh, so
Yeah.
it's a wonderful profession because if we're thinking intelligently, we're always pulling for the other guy. We want them to do
Yeah.
well. We want to lend a hand. And you did great. I really enjoyed so many things you were talking about today. I'm just grateful. And I will tell you, the man does engage on LinkedIn. I saw a post of Rob's. I don't remember what you posted, but it was very impressed me. And so I reached out and I said, "Hey, how about jumping on the show?" Bingo. So yeah, he'll respond on LinkedIn. Go get him. Rob, thank you so much for being on the show. Really grateful, and keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a great
I
job.
appreciate it.
You bet. Well, we'll
Appreciate it,
do it
Rob.
again as well as we can next time, everybody. Until then, stay safe.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please follow, rate, and review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. For more resources and to connect with Rob, visit thepresentationwhisperer.com.